The objective here is to ensure that information receives an appropriate level of protection in accordance with its importance to the organization. There are two keys to ISO 27001, and some may argue this, but risk management, which we will get into next, and information classification drive everything we do in the standard. This next section is very important to fully understand and vet out for your organization. There are three main parts to the information classification process. Well, besides knowing the assets that are to be classified. One, and this is the most involved part of all this, set the classification levels. This can be based on numerous things: legal requirements, values, criticalness, and impact. But we want to set at least three: public, sensitive, and secret. For larger organizations with a wide spread of data, you may get into a fourth or fifth. And those operating in Europe or other areas heavy in data privacy, you may have a personal data classification. Once you have the levels, you want to set rules around labeling the data, procedures for marking the data upon entry into the network, updates and challenges of previously labeled data, and what to do with customer data. Finally, and probably the most important piece, build out the rules of how to handle the data. Similar to the acceptable use policy, we want to lay out the rules for each classification level. Public data can be sent freely in email. Secret data may not be printed unless on a certain printer and stamped accordingly. Employees of the organization need to understand three areas specifically. They need to classify any new documents they create. They need to verify and reclassify, if needed, any existing documents upon opening. And if you choose, they need to classify any hard copies printed off that do not have the classification already set. Now, there are various mediums and states that the data lives in and should be considered when dealing with classification. At a high level, removable media, which is the physical transfer of data via mediums like USB devices, CDs, and DVDs. Information at rest, where data physically rests, which include NAS devices, hard disk devices, and backup devices. Finally, information in transit, or the electronic transfer of data over email, FTP, file sharing services, and HTTP. We can break information at rest down further and focus on archives, databases, and documentation. The media that data lives on needs to be controlled. The last part of Annex A8 gets into media handling in order to prevent disclosure, modification, removal, and destruction of information stored on media. We need to implement procedures around managing removable media in accordance with the classifications defined in the last section. These classifications should have a part focused on how information should be disposed of, which includes disposing of media it lives on. The classification and handling controls you put in place can be as simple as public, confidential, secret, or if your company is centered on data, lots of data, from various sources, various geographical locations, or various legal implications, you may need a more refined and granular policy. You'll want to paint the picture for your employees of exactly what data lives at each classification. Take the guesswork out of it. Then specifically how to handle that data. The problem is you're getting into that lot of words thing again, right? Make it easy on them. Put a grid together that summarizes how to handle each piece of data. How to store it, where to store it, how to transfer it, how to destroy it. Not all data is equal, and employees should be given hands-on training in this area. I suggest breaking it down to groups, team-level discussions, 5 to 20 people at a time, and allow space in the agenda for plenty of questions. Then customize that training to the area where you anticipate questions coming from. This policy will have the most impact on the culture and processing. Get to this early and allow time for folks to adjust accordingly.